Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more pattern testing here. We've got another new load that we've never tested out on the channel to pattern test down there today and see what they can do. Those loads being the Fetter Competition 12 gauge loads. They're 2 3/4, 1 ounce of 7.5 shot. And we're sticking with the same setup just to get our baseline across the board. That being the Remington 1187 Premier with the stock modified choke that came with the gun. I did measure it and it's a 707 constriction for those of you that might be interested in that information. Now those Fetter shells don't list a velocity on the box, but that's something we're going to test today along with how they perform down there on the paper. But if you haven't seen this series of videos before, I've got a chronograph set up over here. We're going to run 3 shots across there and get our average, so we will actually be able to get a velocity on what those Fetter shells are actually doing out of the end of the gun. And then we'll move over and shoot a pattern at 20 yards 30 yards and 40 yards. Then I'll go down and mark all of our hits, draw our circles on the paper, 10 and 30-inch circles. I'll count all of our pellets up so we can get nice pellet counts and density throughout the pattern, and then we'll go over all the information and see how they performed. So first up, let's scoot over to the chronograph and see what kind of speeds we're getting out of these shells. Alright, let's run them through the chronograph and see what we can get here. Alright, for those Fetter shells, they gave us an average of 1,314 feet per second across the chronograph here. Now we're going to head over and I'm going to shoot one at 20, one at 30, and one at 40 yards. I would show you all the film for it, but there's not really anything to see. So I'm just going to go over here, shoot our patterns, get all of our stuff marked, and we'll take y'all down there and see what we get. Alright, so first up here, we've got our 20-yard target. And I apologize for the weird glares and shadows, but it's mid-afternoon and we're just having to deal with what we've got right now. This time I decided to draw a 20-inch circle and a 10-inch circle, since if I drew a 30, everything would be inside of that one way or the other. But either way, in our 10-inch circle here, there's 157 pellets, and in our 20-inch circle, there's 148 pellets. Definitely doesn't look too bad initially for our 20-yard pattern here. Maybe not quite as tight as we've seen a couple of the other loads, but definitely nothing too oddball or weird looking or anything like that. No big voids or anything until you get all the way out to the very edges, but nothing really too spectacular to see out of this one. Alright, so now we move to our 30-yard pattern, and here we can definitely see this shell started to open up pretty sizably here. In our 10-inch circle here, there's 48 pellets, and in our now 30-inch circle, there's 215 pellets. Those seem like pretty decent numbers until you start noticing these bigger gaps and voids around the edge of the pattern here that I don't really like to see. It looks relatively even, but the more you look at it, it's definitely a little bit more on the open side than some of the other loads that we've tested so far, which might not necessarily be a bad thing, but as you get out to farther and farther ranges, you definitely run the risk of a dove or something like that sneaking through that pattern. Alright, now we look at our 40-yard pattern here. And this is what I was concerned about. We definitely started to open up. We had 28 in our 10-inch circle there, and 158 in our 30-inch circle here. And as you can see, even in this 10-inch circle here, there's fist-sized voids or a little bit bigger in there, as well as all throughout the rest of the pattern here. You have some areas that are okay, but we definitely started to see it open up and have voids where something small could definitely sneak through that, especially if you were wing shooting with it. But the overall pattern is definitely on the wider open side from what we've seen so far, which might be what some of y'all are looking for. Others might want a little bit more even pattern with less voids. And for what I would be using these loads for, they would do fine for stuff like squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that. But if you were planning on wing shooting with them, doves, or something like that, you might seriously start to run the risk past 30 yards, even if you lead your shots right, of a dove sneaking through one of those voids, or having 1 or 2 pellets just barely clip them and wound them at that point. So definitely something to take note of as we get out at these longer ranges with these Fetter shells. Definitely something I noticed. And here's our wad out of those Fetter shells. Definitely looks a little bit different than some of the ones we've seen so far. You've got a pretty large gas piston cushion piece on the bottom here with a pretty short, stubby, actual like wad cup or shot cup that your shot fits in. So that definitely could have played into why these shells opened up quite a bit more than what we've seen so far. Not quite a full length wad or something of the sort like that, to where some of that shot escaped in not necessarily the most ideal way. But nothing too out of the ordinary here. It's not all shredded up or anything like that. Nothing as far as shot, pellets, or buffer material or anything like that stuck down in there. But definitely a shorter, a little bit different style wad from what we've seen so far anyway. Alright, well, what did y'all think about those Fetter shells? I definitely don't think they're anything too terrible. I mean, they are really pretty cheap shells. I think I got an entire case of those for like 70 bucks or something at some point. So definitely on the more affordable end. And they definitely did open up quite a bit more than some of the other shells that we've tested so far. But all in all, what do you guys think so far of these shells, of this series, how we're doing it, how we're setting it up? Is there something else that you guys might want to see thrown in here? A different brand of shells, a different method of testing? Anything like that, leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about it. I'm going to get back to it. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think about it. But on that note, I'm going to get back to it. So I'll see y'all in the next one.